So anyway, that's 15 minutes of me talking about me dealing with having pent-up energy on a Saturday because I can't stand having a day off. Wah, poor me with my day off. Fucking A. Well, tomorrow's not a day off. Tomorrow I have a gig. So at least I have some sort of focus, and I can focus on getting the band to where it needs to be and organizing the gig and speaking with the organizers and, doing all that stuff that's tangible, that's outside me. I can do that. That shit I can handle. But here I am now. It's almost 9 o'clock on a Saturday. I've got to figure out why I cannot enjoy myself for even a few minutes. And, I guess that's a really lofty goal. I'm not going to figure that out tonight. I'm not. So I'm going to try something. I'm going to talk about something else. Because I'm sure that there's a bunch of shit that is underlying this sort of macro behavior. And I was thinking about something yesterday, actually, on my drive home, 2-hour drive home from the leadership training. And I was thinking about my daughter, who is now 13. And this came up because yesterday we were working pretty intensely with a personality test, MBTI. And we were really looking deeply into who or what our personality type is and what that means. And the person guiding this had mentioned that, this stuff, these personality traits, it comes from childhood, naturally. There's stuff that's innate and stuff that is learned in childhood. And then as you become an adult, you can sort of tweak those personality traits, or at least you can, as you move into, different realms of your life, and you have to educate yourself in a different behavior. You can teach yourself behaviors that are not naturally in your toolbox. And so what I locked onto in that moment was, who you are does, where you come from, I guess, where you come from, what you've been through as a child, and duh, I guess I have a really hard time. I do have a hard time with putting weight into, and this is going to sound really weird, but I'll explain it. This is hard for me to say, but I think, gosh, God, this is impossible even to say. And I'm wondering if the feeling that I have is just is a coping mechanism that it's like totally counterintuitive, but it's there, and I know it. I can see it. I recognize it, and it's in total contrast to what I know to be true. And I think that is a really good example, or at least good insight into, what happens to people when they go through traumatic events as a child. I'm talking about as a child, within development, and I listen to pop music, and I listen to, not pop music, but lately I have been, and it's all talking about relationships. And God, my God, humans, we sing about relationships, we paint pictures about relationships. We write books about relationships. And to me, it seems so trivial and trite and like, who gives a flying? I don't understand, or I say I don't understand why that's so important, right? People who talk about their parents or their childhood, I don't understand why it's still affecting them. But at the same time, I am the product of my childhood, and I know that. And I always think back or try to connect the dots between a behavior that's happening in my life now to where it might have come from. But I'm guessing that thought that it, it doesn't matter, that the one that doesn't match how I actually feel that was my way of coping with something that I couldn't process at the time. And so anyway, I guess I'm just giving you my thoughts as they pop up. So they're like, imagine that, that lottery machine where all the balls are like, they're being blown around, and then they call them up and they give you the winning numbers. Anyway, imagine all those thoughts like bouncing around, and they're not really making any sense, and they're not in any order. And actually the point is that they're out of order. That's my brain when it comes to thinking about stuff like this. It's just completely disorganized because I had to make peace with things that didn't match. I had to make peace with things that, conflicted. And so I'm still untangling that stuff now. And this leadership course that I'm in, that's going to go for 9 months. The point of it is to take you through these personal journeys to discover who you are, because who you are will define who you are and how you act as a leader. So as you can imagine, this is going to be quite a ride for me. And then I've got to be able to let it happen. And that I've already come up against personal resistance toward that, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hell. But I can see the benefit just from the 2 days that I spent doing some personal work and hearing about why it's important. I see now why it's important to figure out why certain behaviors pop up and, how to be more in control of them, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to learn as I go doing this. So driving home yesterday from the first session, thinking about my 13-year-old daughter. And I recently just told her a story. I gave her some information about my childhood, which I try to keep quiet. I don't want to pass on the nightmare that's in my head to my children. But the nightmare that's in my head that I lived through is the reason why I've done what I've done with my life and why I'm in the Leadership Institute to begin with. The only reason why I'm there I didn't go to school to become a leader. I didn't train to be a leader. I've never been to any sort of legit leadership training. And yet I end up in leadership roles wherever I go. And that is from what I've had to get through, and because I've survived. And whatever it was about me that kept me alive is what has given me the skill set that has put me in this class of other folks. And I'm not going to, I don't know, maybe some of them have gone through the, same sort of, and I'm guessing they have. Everyone has. If you go on a journey, no matter what, it could be something awful. It could be something great. It could be whatever it is. If it's challenging, you will come out on the other side with a skill set, or at least new tools for your toolbox that will be so beneficial to bringing you to the next level, let's say. So not to take that away from anyone. I wouldn't do that. I'm just speaking on in my experience. So the only reason why I'm there is because who I am and my personality has taken me to the place, to the job, to, the last 3 years that I've been working where I'm working and excelling. And now I'm in this leadership institute. And so I was thinking about it on the way home and, thinking that I'm going to have to dredge or drag some of this stuff up in order to, if I don't. So I had this dream. Here's me going on a tangent, but it's going to make sense. Okay, let me finish a sentence. I've learned in my personality that I don't know. I tend to go off on tangents because I see connections that nobody else does. So, okay, yeah, my point is I have certain things in my history that I've put away. And why would anyone do that? Why would anyone lock something away and not let it come out? Well, first of all, it's just awful stuff. And, there's no, I don't know. It's hard to legitimize bringing something like that out into the open. But I had this dream, and I've had dreams like this before, but this one was pretty visceral. And I wrote about it. So I'm just flipping through my book right now because I wrote it down. So I'll read it. I'll try not to read it word by word because then I'll get bored. But in the dream, there was a body buried under the ground, and there were 2 kids around it. They weren't my kids, but they were just kids. And I knew that the body was buried there. And so seeing the kids around it, I felt anxious that they were going to find it. And I was protecting it. I was hiding it. And I could see the ground, that it was rising, and that, there were lumps coming up in the dirt. And I knew that the body was it was going to be exposed. And the kids being around it it was making me nervous, but it was also getting me angry. Please just get away from there. I don't want you to discover what this is. And so it was then, and then in my hand in the dream, there were these bumps forming in my hand, like bone spurs.